Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Kimmy Wall, Public Information Officer for Rancho Water, and I'm also going to be moderating today's meeting and taking care of questions at the end. Following today's presentations, we will have time to take questions. There are a number of you joining us via Zoom. Thank you so much for being there, and for everyone that's here in person today as well. Please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen if you're online and you'd like to ask a question, and you can submit your question there. If you're here in person, please hold your questions until the end, till the speakers have all presented, and then we will take questions. And with that, I will turn it over to our General Manager, Robert Grantham.
Good afternoon. Thank you for coming, and thank you for those joining us online and those that are watching the video afterwards. I'm going to start by saying a couple quick words and then turn it over to President Gonzalez Brady and Senior Vice President John Rossi. We're at a moment in terms of water supply and water needs. And what we're here today to do is talk about how Rancho Water is meeting that moment on behalf of our community and our constituents. But we're also going to talk about things that opportunities for the public and our community to do to help us, meet that moment by conserving water in a reasonable way. And so we have a series of presentations this evening on conservation, on our water supply projects, and what we're doing on behalf of the community and with the region. With that, I'd like to turn it over to President Gonzalez Brady.
Good afternoon, early evening. I say afternoon, makes the day go longer. Thank you for coming in person, and thanks to all of you who are on Zoom. What I would like to say is that word of mouth, I think, from people who are trusted to their friends, to their families, is the best way to communicate this kind of thing. So I'm so appreciative that you're here so you can spread the word on our behalf. I mean, so many times there's mixed messaging that's coming from different organizations, whether it be a water industry entity that may not be in our local region, or from Sacramento, or from the federal government. And what happens here is very much impacted by those things, but also I think we have a little bit of a local, I don't know, friend to friend kind of a relationship that helps us beyond what the overall huge message might be. So we're here to clear up a lot of questions. There's probably been some moving parts when it comes to what is the rule before versus today. And we're here to help you understand that and to ask you on behalf of us to spread the word. Thanks again for joining us. I'd like to introduce our Senior Vice President, John Rossi.
Thank you, Carol Lee. I too want to welcome everyone again here live and or on Zoom. And I've had the pleasure of working in the water industry for about 30 years and retired 5 years ago. And then my honor to serve on the board of directors for the last 4 years. And you'll hear today from the people that have the talent and the information. But I would just say that we all know it's not business as usual. It's been extremely dry. We don't know how long this drought will go. But it's I just commend all of you with us today to seek information, to know what's happening, and to be able to do your part, both to save water and save yourselves money too when we're not using as much water. So welcome, and on behalf of the whole board, we're glad you're here, and we're going to turn it over again to our very talented staff that we're blessed with. Rob, thank you.
So very briefly, I'm going to talk about the agenda today and the talented speakers. But I'm also going to have Kimmy play a video for us, what we're doing, Rancho is doing on behalf of the community. So we're going to talk about our projects. What are we doing? How are we building reliable water supply? As we struggle with supplies coming from Northern California, the Colorado River, our own local supplies, what are we doing to ensure that reliability? And it will take us decades to do some elements of our program, but some we're doing in the next 2 years. And that's really important for the community to understand. Secondarily, what are the requirements? We're working directly with the state and the federal government on those meeting the needs in terms of being efficient of water supply, but also doing it in partner with our community. And that's the last component. We're going to talk about those conservation approaches where rebates are there to support the community as we put water conservation measures in place. And so I'm going to ask Kimmy to play a video for us talking about our overall approach to water supply reliability.
In Southern California, we appreciate the value of water and the lifestyle it provides. From the ocean waves that call to us, to the peaceful serenity of the vineyards and groves that bring families and friends together, Californians are connected to water and ready to take steps to ensure its availability for a safe, reliable, and secure future. Protecting this natural resource is everyone's responsibility. Together, we need to address a new reality, one that includes longer dry periods and changing precipitation patterns. Imported water sources from the State Water Project and Colorado River are being stretched thin, and the groundwater reservoirs throughout the state are often at overdraft levels. However, the Temecula Valley and Rancho California Water District have a unique asset. The underground basin downstream of Vail Lake and Valle de los Caballos is one of the largest in Southern California, one that offers the region sustainable water supplies for generations to come. Expanding the use of the basin means water reliability for Rancho Water's customers and our tribal, regional, and military partners. For these same partners, it means opportunity. Opportunity for water storage for use during drought conditions, maximizing local water supply, using every drop of recycled water, and protecting water quality. The engineering projects are comprised of 3 elements: expanding our groundwater banking program by 150,000 acre-feet, or 50 billion gallons, enough water for 300,000 households. Developing advanced treatment facilities to maximize recycled water, creating a drought-proof water supply, and enhancing water quality. Constructing brine disposal facilities that could also foster industrial development. With these elements, the program will promote regional self-resilience, support disadvantaged and tribal communities, and bolster agriculture. So now's the time to join us in furthering our region's water storage capabilities. Time to inspire the development of local industry. Time to support economic development and environmental protections. And time to encourage our essential California connection to water.
Cheers! 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 Cheers, California!
Cheers, California.
Thank you, Kimmy. The risk of being live. Well, thank you. It's as you can see, we as one of the largest water retailers in the state, we have an obligation to protect our community, but we also have an obligation to think beyond our own service areas. Look for those partnerships with our other regional partners in the state and federal to secure water that benefits our customers first and brings others in the fold. So as we build out our program, it really is a chance to do so in a cost-efficient manner by bringing in a larger partnership. And so I'm going to turn it over to Jake Wiley, who's our Assistant General Manager of our Engineering and Operations, to talk about first, the water supply conditions. What are those challenges that we are facing? Again, meeting that moment and how we're going to meet the moment. So talking a little bit more about our programs and what we'll be taking on. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Jake.
All right, thank you, Rob. Like Rob said, my name is Jake Wiley. I'm the Assistant General Manager over Engineering Operations here at the district. And I'm going to pull up a presentation here. We good? Okay, great. And I'm going to start, I'm going to talk about a little bit of kind of broader or kind of the regional water supply situation. And then we're going to kind of keep bringing it in to Rancho Water, just our service area and the customers we serve, how we do that, and kind of our current conditions and the things that we're working on. So with that, what supplies Southern California? We have multiple sources of water, 2 main import sources, and we're talking, we start hundreds of miles to the north and hundreds of miles to the east. And the video talked a little bit about it, but we have the State Water Project that comes from the north. And so that takes water mainly from the Sierras and above the Bay Delta and brings it down into Southern California. It's a project that was built in the 60s and 70s to bring water into Southern California. And then also the Colorado River Aqueduct, which was built in the 1930s, which brings water from the Colorado River Basin. So the upper basin, which includes Lake Powell, the lower basin, which includes Lake Mead, and then on into Southern California. And then of course, we also have our local groundwater conservation, recycling projects, all identified here. But those are our main sources regionally. And so what's happening in those regions? Really, we've got drought conditions really pervasive throughout those two regions. So you have this upper Colorado River Basin, again, that feeds Lake Powell, Lake Mead, and then into Southern California. And then you have the Northern Sierras, and you can see these dark brown and red colors. That's all classified as severe drought or worse, up to extreme drought, but pretty broad across both of those regions. And why is that? Well, it's really been a 3-year story, 2020, 2021, and now 2022. And this is showing what's coming from up north, so via the Sacramento River. And you can see here, lowest consecutive 3-year runoff period. We had 2020, which was not great, 2021, which was really dry. And if you remember, 2022, well, it was actually December 2021, started off really well. We had a lot of, if you traveled over the Christmas holidays, you probably got, if you went north, you probably got stuck coming on the way back because we had huge snowstorms, winter rains. One really big storm is what we got. From January to March was then the driest period on record for precipitation. So in January, the forecast was above average, but you can see where we ended up. Again, a third consecutive year below average by the time it was all said and done. So this is the north area, the State Water Project area. Now we're going to move east, and similar story. 2020 very dry, 2021 even drier, and 2022 a little better than those 2 years, but again below average. So, and this is what you've seen. A lot of the publicity, I would say, has been focused on Lake Mead. You see these pictures of the bathtub ring, the boats that are now being unearthed, and other even worse things that are being unearthed. But this is really the story, and it's more of a longer term story when you look at starting in, and this might be a little difficult to read. I hope you can kind of pick up on it, but you'll get the gist of it. Starting in early 2000s, 2002 through now, it's really been this red line kind of shows it. This is Lake Mead water levels. This is across its entire history, but you can see those last 18, 20 years, a steady decline. A couple little recoveries here and then. We've had some wet years in there, but really the story has been a steady decline to a point where we sit now, which is what they classify as a shortage condition 2. And that's the Bureau of Reclamation who operates those facilities. Declared a shortage stage 2A on 9/16/22. That's the first time we've been in that shortage stage. And I'll go a little bit more into what that means here in a minute. But yeah, as far as water capacity, 25% on Lake Powell, that's the upper, and about 28% on Lake Mead. So what does that mean for our regional supply? And Metropolitan Water District, that's MWD. And some of these slides are from, they are continually giving us updates on their conditions. So this is coming from them. But you can kind of see the supply mix. This is for calendar year 2022. And so they're looking at the Colorado River supply, about a million acre feet. But you can see the state water supply. So this is a 5% allocation from up north, which is very, very low. So we'd like to see that green covering actually this whole area and maybe even a little more in a good year. But you can see that those supplies have really been curtailed. So the makeup is in storage. So we have storage around the state that, during these dry years makes up for that. But it's about 400,000 acre feet, which is a lot more than we'd like to see. That's just for this year. So where does that leave us? This is MWG's storage projection for 2022. Again, you can see they had about 2.6 million in storage last year. You can see that 400,000 acre foot drop from 2021 to 22. The good news in this is we did start from a very strong position, at least regionally. Again, this is not talking Lake Mead and state water project, but regionally from a storage perspective, started off with, in 2019, which was very wet, 3.2 million acre feet. But this is concerning when this continues to drop. And you can see historically, when things are really dry, you can drop pretty quickly over a low precipitation period. So I think those are the pressures from outside that are really, the Mead and the North that are really putting pressure on the regional supply, even though there is some storage there. So just kind of a summary, Lake Mead, very low. It's in, again, shortest stage 2A, which really what that meant was mandatory cuts to 3 entities that draw from that storage, which was Arizona, Nevada, and Mexico. No cuts to California yet. But there is a request by Bureau of Reclamation to cut between 2 and 4 million acre feet annually of use, which is very, very large cut. So those negotiations are ongoing between everybody who draws from Lake Mead, Metropolitan being one of those major players. So those are ongoing. So to be determined, but that's kind of where we sit today. Again, I talked about the state water project at 5% allocation. That's very, very low. We'd like to see that at 20 or 50%, which would be really, really good. That's where you start filling your reservoirs back up and adequate supplies coming from up north. And they're anticipating December 1st. That's when they'll set another allocation that's going to be, they're not expecting a big windfall. We can always hope. But initial state water project allocation, we're looking at another low allocation. They modify that as time goes on, right? As we go through the winter, you see what comes, rain, snow, you see the snowpack levels that, sometimes you see those on TV where they're out taking the snowpack levels. As those results come back, they'll modify that based on the results. But the predictions, they're saying that La Nina conditions, that doesn't mean we won't get storms, but the prediction is that the drought's going to persist at least through December 1st, and that the chances are probable that the drought will persist beyond that. So again, those are predictions, and we'll see where it goes. And then summary, again, we used Met used about 400,000 acre feet. They're projecting through this year to get through this dry year storage. So you saw the graphs on that. So that's the regional summary. It's kind of from out here to big Southern California. Now we're going to get down to Rancho Water. So our supply portfolio, here's our main sources of supply. We have treated import. So that's what we take from Metropolitan through our member agencies. Untreated import. So that's also from Metropolitan. It's just a slightly lower cost supply that we use. Vail Lake, so we capture stormwater and use that beneficially for the region's use. And native groundwater, which is a really solid piece of supply for us that we manage very carefully, and I'll go into that a little bit in a few minutes. And then also recycled water. We produce recycled water from treatment plants, so it irrigates our golf courses and parks and landscapes and appropriate uses. But we actually use 100% of the treated wastewater for irrigation use. So we're maximizing the use of that resource as well. And this is kind of what it looks like, our makeup of supply. This is kind of a typical year for us. About 60%. So the blue and the orange, that's the treated import and the untreated import. So that's what we're taking from those sources from the outside. 30% from the native groundwater. Again, very, very good, reliable source for us. And about 8% on the reclaim side. So going into our groundwater a little bit, and this is really the backbone of the water we produce locally. We have native supplies. So we have an aquifer, a groundwater basin that we produce from. We have a series of wells, most of it here from the Paba Basin. So that's kind of the south end of Temecula, between Vail Lake and where Temecula Creek and Marietta Creek, Marietta Creek come together. So down kind of before you go up the hill, if you were leaving Temecula, it kind of converges right there, but that's the Paba Basin. About 67% of our groundwater comes from that basin. We do a couple of things there. Again, the native groundwater that we produce, so we sustainably produce groundwater that basin year after year after year. But we also put water in the ground, so that's that untreated import. We actually put it in the ground through a series of recharge ponds and then take it out through downstream wells. The groundwater has to be managed, and we have to follow kind of the the hydrologic patterns. And so this is kind of a long history here, 88 to about current time. And so you can see this down here, the orange, that's kind of the years where we had low precipitation. The green, that was the above average precipitation. So you can see as we have nice wet years, we can actually increase production from our groundwater basin. It's being naturally recharged, right? So there's more water there for us to be able to take. But as we go through these longer dry spells, which again, kind of looking at that same kind of graph as Lake Mead, you know, from 2002, a couple wet years in there, but really kind of a longer sustained period of dry, you can see we've had to curtail production to maintain this blue line. So this blue line is the water levels. So as those begin to come down, we've got to curtail our production. You can see we leveraged during the last drought, that was like 2011 through about 2016, and stabilized the groundwater. And now we're starting to see a little bit of recovery, but we need some rain. So but we do that on an annual basis. We take a look at our groundwater levels, our annual production, to maintain this valuable resource for the district. Vail Lake, again, similar pattern to Lake Mead. This is the water levels at Vail Lake. Vail Lake is only charged naturally, so it's just stormwater runoff. So we're reliant on rainfall, above that in that watershed. And you can see from, again, through the 2011 really to now, the drought's effects, just Vail Lake is not quite recovered yet. So that's where that sits. So what have we asked our customers? And you're going to hear a lot about this from a couple of the other presenters, but really a call for conservation. It came from the state. There's an emergency declaration, voluntary 15% use for or 15% reduction for our area. That's what's been asked of us. So in response, the district moved to what we call stage 3B of our water shortage contingency plan. And really that's as we get into deeper drought stages, it helps us make cuts to help, encourage our customers to make those critical cuts that we need. 3B is pretty, we've got a long ways to go in that plan, but that's kind of the action that we took there. It targets about a 10% plus water use reduction. Just for context, this last month, we had about a 14% reduction compared to 2020. So our customers are really doing a good job. What I was going to say was, we've asked our customers for conservation, but kind of like Rob alluded to, we always ask ourselves, if we're going to ask them, what are we doing, right? What's Rancho Water doing? And we're continuously working on our water supply. This is not something we do in droughts and not in wet times, but obviously there's a much heightened awareness to what's going on. So we're doing a lot of things on the groundwater front. Some of our wells are very old. We started producing groundwater in the 70s and 80s, Rancho Water. And so some of those wells are 30, 40 years old. So over the last 10, 12 years, really since I've been at the district, we've replaced a dozen of our wells in that Pava Valley. We're continually rehabbing those wells to make sure they're as efficient as possible. Large investments in our well field. We're also looking to expand. So we're talking about that untreated water that we recharge up at the top of the basin. We're looking to expand that. We've got several large projects that are about to go to construction to do that. So we're going to actually double the capacity over time. We'll be doubling the capacity of that facility. So it gives us a lot more local control over our water supply. And that's been in the works for 10 years. That was a 4-phase program that we're on about phase 3.5 and really, the next 3-4 years finishing that program. And then this was part of the video, our groundwater bank. We've done some analysis and some feasibility studies on kind of capacity we have to store water during wet years in our groundwater basin so that we can pull it out during dry years, times such as this. And so we're looking at the required facilities and things to actually make that happen. Recycled water. I told you we use 100% of it, but that is always growing, right? As the community grows, we take more wastewater. So we have to look at now and then also into the future. So two main programs that we're doing on the recycled water front, one being the accelerated retrofit program. So that's really incentivizing customers to move their landscape from, and this is mostly, again, HOAs, schools, kind of these larger customers that have been on potable water for their landscape irrigation. moving them to the purple pipe, moving them to recycled, which is local supply. So the more we can do that, it's more cost effective, it's sustainable. So we want to do that. This is a project we did on Temecula Parkway. If you've driven down there, well, about a year ago, if you were driving down Temecula Parkway, you probably saw us with this purple pipeline down the street. We did a large project to replace a pipeline there. The next thing that we're doing, and this, again, this was in the video, we're looking at what we call IPR, indirect potable reuse. So this would be advanced treatment of future recycled water supplies to supplement our potable system. So actually put it in the ground, obviously very advanced treatment. So we're looking at those things. Actually have a technical feasibility study, basically a preliminary design completed on that. So we're going to be moving into final design and piloting of those treatment facilities here in the next couple of years. Big project we've got going, the Vale Dam Rehabilitation Project. This is, Vale Dam was built in the 1940s. It was built privately. It's a good dam, but under the strict regulatory requirements that we have today, the knowledge we have about seismic and flooding and those kind of things, we're required to do a rehabilitation, and it's quite extensive. We've been working on this for several years now, but we are getting close. In the next couple of years, we anticipate we'll actually be rebuilding a portion. This is the existing dam out at Vale Lake, and this is a rendering of what the new structure will look like. So that's another big project. And again, this just ensures that one of these local supplies that we have, again, a large reservoir that captures stormwater that can be used as potable water downstream to our customers. Very important to what we do. So we want to make sure for the next 100 years we have this in place as well. So, and that's all I've got. Danielle's our next. Okay, thank you.
Turn it over to Danielle Coates, our Senior Government Affairs and Public Affairs Manager, to talk about the upcoming activities with regulation.
Good afternoon. I'm Danielle Coates. I'm our Senior Government and Public Affairs Manager. Excuse me while I pull up my presentation real fast. All right. Well, I think the main takeaway for today is that it takes a lot to provide water every single day reliably, but we have a lot of wonderful and dedicated professionals working very hard behind the scenes to ensure that reliability is always met day in and day out. As we face the historic droughts and the times of reduction and loss that come on occasion in the state of California, we are asked to conserve, and we are very grateful to our customers and to others that have continually stepped up and do what is needed to help us achieve the conservation that is asked of all of us. So I'm going to walk us through what exactly is being asked of us from the state perspective, and then also shed a little light on maybe some of the things that you did here, or maybe some misunderstandings that have been brought forth as a result of some of these guidelines and regulations. So just to ground us all a little bit more, the picture of the full Lake Oroville from 2017, that was the time of flooding. That wasn't very long ago. As Jake indicated, we started this drought in a fairly strong position. In Southern California, because of the investments we've made, we've started in a very, very good place for going into minor drought conditions, but we are currently in historic drought conditions. We're in a third year of a historic drought. And this presentation today is very timely. October 1st was the start of what we call the new water year. So the water year typically runs from October 1st to September 30th of the next year. And much the reason that the water year is placed in that way is because we can account for the seasonal wet periods along with the dry periods. And we take stock throughout the year of water supplies throughout the state. as Jake indicated, 2022, January through March, was the driest year in over 100 years. That is pretty dramatic. And as we look to the possibility of a fourth historic drought looming on the horizon, we might be asked to do a more conservation and to take even greater steps to conserve our water. So we want to bring all of you up to speed with what we're dealing with, what we're facing, and what is being asked of us. Right now, over 99% of the state is in some stage of drought, with nearly 95%, as Jake indicated, in severe drought. That's pretty substantial. And of course, that is not, California is not exclusive to those drought conditions. Drought is, much of the West is facing these drought conditions. So what has the state done? There's been 3 major recent actions. Governor Newsom asked for a 15% voluntary water use reduction back on July 8th of 2021. So that is a voluntary ask, but what isn't voluntary is the fact that we have to continually submit to the State Water Resources Control Board our water production figures. So that way they are tracking and understanding how close we are to meeting that voluntary reduction. So we want to be responsive, because if we aren't responsive, we might face mandatory actions. And again, as Jake indicated, we are so grateful to our customers. We are at 14% for over 2020 for this month. But that is fantastic when you think that only over the Labor Day weekend, some of those were some record temperatures. So again, this is pretty remarkable work. Back on October in 2021, all of California was declared in a state emergency. Prior to that date, the governor had declared county-wide specific regional drought declarations. But on that date, the entire state was declared a drought emergency. That drought declaration does give the governor additional powers and authorities to pass rules and regulations. So on March 28, 2022, the governor issued an executive order, and this executive order did require all water providers throughout the state to move to a level of their water shortage contingency plan that would result in 20% water reductions. It also directed the State Water Resources Control Board to require the removal of non-functional turf in commercial, industrial, and institutional, along with HOA common areas. So what does that look like? On May 24th, the State Water Resources Control Board issued the emergency regulations eliminating the potable water use on non-functional turf for the CII HOA common area customers. This does not apply to turf that is irrigated recycled water. This does not apply to residential turf. It doesn't apply to turf where children play, where people gather. It is more those medians and those strips along the roadway or around the commercial centers that you see that no one uses unless they're mowing the lawn. The governor has this in operation for the emergency regulations are in operation for an entire year unless they're rescinded or unless they are made permanent. So again, what is non-functional turf? Non-functional turf is what you see here. It's decorative and ornamental in nature. It's not used for humans or pets or ball fields. It does not apply to turf that is used for civic gatherings. So when you think about your community gatherings where you have your blankets and your picnics, that is not non-functional turf. That is very much functional. And these pictures illustrate that a little more in detail. Where children playing, people gathering, not in people's front yard. This past August, the governor also issued a water supply strategy that will further call for an additional 500,000 acre feet of water reductions. But it will also look to advance additional storage throughout the state, that's groundwater and above ground reservoirs, increase recycled water, eliminate water waste again, and then increase desalination and stormwater capture. Rancho, as Jake outlined, is poised to take advantage of some of the funding that will come along with this. We've been working very, very hard to be responsive and to position the district in a good spot once these dollars and once these opportunities roll out. So we are committed to keeping you informed and updated. We are committed to sharing with you any conservation requirements that we're being asked and explain them to you. That is our commitment. We're seeking to continue to inform our customers as we advance projects, so that way you know that we are making the investments necessary to build the reliance and to build the sustainability that is needed to carry us into the future. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jason.
All right, good afternoon. Again, thank you everybody for joining us today. My name is Jason Martin. I'm Director of Administration for the Rancho California Water District. And before I get into my presentation, I really wanted to start by saying thank you, not just for being here and for being online, but thanking our community for how they've responded when we've asked them to step up and save water, and not just during the last 6 months or the last year, but really going back to 2015 when we dealt with this before, and even before that. Our community is our partner. And they really work well with us when we ask them for some water savings and to step up and do things maybe a little differently than they've done in the past. So thank you very much for all that you've done. And we really appreciate all the efforts. You've heard some great information today from Jake and from Danielle about our water supply conditions, where our water comes from, some of the different restrictions that we have and that we're all facing. But what I want to talk to you today is about what you can do to be even more water conscious, more resilient with the water that you use. So I'm going to talk about some of the things you can do with your landscaping, some of the things that you can pay attention to, and some of the tools and resources that we have available to you to be able to take advantage of rebates and different things like that. So jump into the first slide and talk a little bit about where does all that water go that our customers use. And this is a pretty dramatic chart. That section in green is your outdoor watering. And it surprises a lot of people, because when you think about using water, you're thinking about turning on a tap, you're thinking about running your dishwasher, you're thinking about flushing a toilet, things that you can see and that are tangible. But that outdoor watering typically occurs at night when we're asleep and don't see that happening. And so a lot of times this can be surprising that there's really that much water that's used outside to keep those landscapes green. Another one that I think is an interesting item in here is the item in yellow, and that's leaks. And that's kind of that silent use that that goes unseen and we don't see, but it does cause water use, and it causes your bill to go up because of those leaks. And so some of the things you'll see in here today, we have rebates for replacing some of the devices that may be failing or causing these issues. So we'll talk more about that, but leaks is also a significant source of where that water is going. On the topic of outdoor water use, your average lawn, I like to use props. So square foot of grass, not real grass, this is artificial turf, but if this were real grass, over the course of a year, that grass is going to need about 4 feet of water, if you stacked 4 feet of water up on top of this, to remain healthy. That's about 30 gallons of water. That jug right there, that's a 5-gallon jug. So you would need 6 of those every year to keep the single square foot of lawn green. It's quite a bit. Unfortunately, our customers, and not our customers, but users tend to use more water than that, really more than they need to sustain that lawn. So in reality, what we see is about 8 feet of water being applied to lawns, or a square foot of lawn every year, or 60 gallons per square foot. And that's for a number of different reasons. One could be just simply that water irrigation system is not efficient. Maybe they have the run times too long. A lot of times, and this is a good example, this time of year, seasonal adjustments aren't made for your watering. So you might still have your watering schedule set for August. And now when we get into these cooler months in October, it's still overwatering and just using too much. So a lot of water goes into keeping that turf green and looking good. And so one of the things that we're going to talk about today is moving to something that's more sustainable for the area that we live in and for our climate. And so why move to California native plants? What's the advantage and what's the benefit in doing that? Well, a few graphs here. These are the water demands by plant type. And on the left-hand side, that blue area that you see represents the amount of additional water you have to apply to turf on top of what falls naturally from the sky. So that's a big area you have to fill in order to keep that lawn green. In the middle, we move to drought tolerant plants. Those aren't necessarily California native, but those are going to be anything that's more sustainable and uses less water. You can see that amount of supplemental water goes down. And then lastly, that sweet spot that we really hope that everybody can get to is working with California native plants that are from California, that are used to the climate and don't require as much water as turf grass and other types of plants. And so you see that curve really starts to come down when you move into California native plant types. So on top of just using less water, there are obviously more benefits to using native plants than just that. One is the reduction in yard waste. You don't have nearly as much yard waste anymore. You're not putting all of those lawn clippings into that green trash can anymore. You just don't have them anymore. You also are reducing manpower, whether you're doing your own lawn maintenance or landscape maintenance or having somebody else do it. The amount of time required to do that comes down. And ultimately, all of those things combined will save our customers money. So we've really had some great response on turf removal over the last 8 years or so. Just within our community, the customers that Rancho Water serves, we've had over 4.8 million square feet of turf removed. That means $8.2 million going back to those customers to remove that turf. Significant investment in helping our customers use less water. And as you can see, about 165 million gallons of water saved per year. So every year as we move forward, we save an additional 165 million gallons of water. The photos there represent one of our very own customers. They participated in the landscape transformation contest. I think, Kimmy, this was one of a few winners.
Yeah, this is actually our top winner. We did have 2 from Temecula area though.
Perfect. So the picture on the upper left is what the property looked like before. Once they went through the transformation, you can see a lot of color, a lot of diversity, even a walking path leading up to the front door that wasn't there before. So a lot of things can be done to keep your home beautiful, but doing it with California friendly plants that use a lot less water. We've also partnered with the Promenade Mall in Temecula. We built a demonstration garden in partnership with them. It's available for you to walk through right now and see different examples of what plants might look good at your home and just get some ideas of what you can do locally. And so now let's talk about some tools and resources. What do we have available for our customers to help you be more water efficient? Well, the first one is My Water Tracker. This is an online tool that we have available to our customers and have had available since 2015 that allows them to go in and look at their real-time water use and water budget. Up to just a few hours ago, if you were to go on right now, you'd be able to see what water you used and what your budget was for yesterday. You'll see daily and hourly usage, and we'll also send out budget, leak, and rain alerts. And what I mean by that is if we see continuous usage over a 24-hour period, we'll send you an email or a text based on your preference to let you know that you may have a potential leak. You sign up for rain alerts, we'll let you know that within 48 hours, there's a significant rain event coming. You should probably turn off your sprinklers. So we will send you those alerts as they come up, and highly encourage you to sign up for those. They've been very, very helpful for many of our customers. You can also view and pay your bill online. Since you're there, you can pay it as well. And lastly, it is mobile friendly. So if you're using it on your phone or on a tablet, it is very easy to use and to work with. And there's a link to it there. I'll also hand out some things a little bit later that have links to all of the stuff that we're going to be talking about today. Another free tool that we have for our customers are residential landscape evaluations. So we'll actually come to your home and we'll walk the entire property, go through your irrigation controller, go through your landscape. We'll turn sprinklers on and off to see where you might be able to gain some efficiencies. We'll look at your indoor and outdoor water devices to see if we can spot any leaks. And then we'll give you a report before we leave that says, here are the 3 or 4 things that you should work on, or I should say, take a look at to maybe improve your water use efficiency. This is a newer program that we are going to be launching here in just a couple of weeks. This is what we're calling our Inspired Landscapes website. And so a lot of times customers will come to us and they'll say, I don't really know where to start. I have turf and I don't want to have turf anymore, and I want to convert it to something, but what plants would you suggest? And for my size property, what pallets might look good for the area that I live in? And so this website that we're going to launch in the next few weeks will actually walk you through the process of making those choices and those decisions. And at the end, we can get you lined up with different resources like landscape contractors, landscape designers, a list of different nurseries that you can go to find the different plants that you might be interested in. We're also in the middle of working out with several different landscape, or I should say nurseries, to develop a partnership that we're calling a Murrieta and Temecula in Bloom. And so this is one more way to make it easier for customers when they go to a nursery. Again, which plants, which palette should I select? We'll have an area in that nursery that says, this is the Murrieta Temecula in Bloom section. These are the plants that work well within the climate and the region that we live in. And then a little further down the road, probably in the next month or two, we're developing what we're calling a concierge service. And this goes one step further. It's not just a website that you can go to walk through the steps, but it's actually a person that you can call, that you can email, that you can work with to ask questions and to also help you go through the process. Well, what if I want to do turf removal and take advantage of that $2 per square foot rebate? We've got somebody that can help you do that and even go so far as to help fill out that application. So we'll send out more information once that's available. Kimmy will send an e-blast to all of our customers, let them know once that becomes available and online. Talked a lot about the different things that you can do. Well, what are some of the financial incentives that are out there to help make these things possible? A lot of different rebates, from $2 per square foot for turf removal, irrigation controller rebates, sprinkler nozzles. Sometimes your sprinkler nozzles are just old, they don't spray as well as they used to, not as efficient. We can pay for replacing those. On the indoor side, high efficiency clothes washers and toilets. So a bunch of different rebates you can take advantage of, and a few websites there on the bottom that you can go to get more information on that. And again, we'll give you some links for those sites before you leave. And then one more piece of collateral that we'll give you before you go is what we call our pathway to water savings. This kind of steps you through the process of those different things I just talked about, how to tune up your irrigation system, how to take advantage of those rebates. So a pathway to get to these different programs that we have available to all of our customers. And with that, that will wrap up the presentation portion of the section. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to have some questions. And I don't know if we have any online yet. We do. You want to start with those that are here? Perfect.
And just a reminder for those online, if you do have a question, you can go to the Q&A section on the bottom of your screen and type in a question there.
Questions from the, none from the in live.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
All right, so we had a question online. I moved back into my house in Temecula a month ago. I've noticed that the 3 toilets in the 3 bathrooms waste a lot of water in each flush. Is there anything we can do to save water in every flush?
You can replace the toilet, and as Jason just presented, there are rebates for doing so. So as I would continue to get efficiencies in indoor plumbing, and it's a program that we highly encourage folks to take advantage of. Probably the easiest.
All right, next question. With water becoming a scarce commodity, why is development continuing to be allowed?
That's a question that is oftentimes asked. In fact, when we were in Sacramento just last week, having that exact conversation. There's general, and then there's Rancho, and so it should probably be specific to Rancho. Landowners within our service area they provide, there's an ad valorem property tax. That's a really important source of revenue for the district. We use that to continue to maintain our system and to be able to have reliable water service. And so even for the properties that aren't developed, they're contributing a portion of that. And so they're effectively paying their fair share of our infrastructure, our critical infrastructure, as well as that water supply source. And so they are paying their fair share. And so they do have a right and an access right to that water. Outside of Rancho, it's a different story. It's smattering throughout the state in terms of different rules, different regulations. And that's a question that is being asked at the state level and at the federal level. We, as the water providers, stewards of your resources, are asking that question to the state as well. And so we're directly engaging and advocating of, we need reliable water supply, not just for potentially development, but we need it for our current customers. And so we need the state to continue to step up. And I am pleased to say they are doing a much better job as of as of late of trying to move forward water supply projects. So we're not in the cyclical process of a crisis, if you will. And so really trying to shore up our water supplies. But as Danielle spoke and Jake spoke, we are at a different moment. Water coming in from Northern California and Colorado are requiring us to think differently. Ultimately, we do have the ability to create a moratorium on development if we ever got to that point. But we're really proud to say that we've been forward thinking here locally, so we're nowhere near that moment.
Okay, thank you. Are properties, specifically residential or agricultural with wells, going to continue to be allowed to withdraw water at no cost?
So property rights. If you do have a water right, you have the right to consume water. But we, as Jake noted, we are the stewards of the basin. And so we continue to maintain the health of the basin. And that's really important. And so we're doing our part on behalf of our customers. But if you do have a water right, then you do have the right to take water from as allowed under the law.
This person says, I never hear about desalinization of ocean water anymore. I know in the past the expense was significant, but why is that never part of the discussion?
I appreciate the question. With again, talk about the state and changes at the state level. As part of the governor's portfolio of water supply, what is a significant change just in August was desal is now considered part of that portfolio of water supply. And you're right. And the question, the person's question, it is a more expensive supply. And so there's the Doheny desal plant in South Orange County. It'll provide 15,000 acre feet of water supply that's currently going to the Coastal Commission. We as an agency are writing a support letter to support our peer agencies as they look at local reliable supplies. But as the conditions go on, we will need to evaluate additional supplies, which could very well include desalinization. I will finally note that that's a statewide approach. We, as Jake noted, are really focused on shoring up our own supplies, recycle water, using every last drop to the most beneficial use from an environmental perspective and from a cost efficiency standpoint. That's what our board has always pushed and advocated for us to do. And that's what we're proud to do. We use every drop as many times as we can. And so that's for the most cost efficient approach for our customers.
Okay, so to that point, we have another recycled water question. Can we bring recycled water to the residents of those HOAs that use recycled water already so their lawns don't die?
There's a health requirement there in terms of where we can use recycled water. Jake, would you mind answering this?
Yeah, we do have a couple areas within our service area that do have a dual plumbing, but it is quite difficult, especially on kind of smaller residential. And it comes with a lot of drawback on the resident side too, because you're talking about having to add a backflow preventer, and that thing has to be certified every year. Because you really, when you dual plumb a house, you've got to, number one priority, you got to protect health and safety. You don't want cross connections, those kind of things. So to date, we've really targeted the larger irrigated areas that are isolated from other, from our potable water system. And like Danielle was saying, really the state or anybody hasn't really come down on residential type landscapes yet. Of course, we're encouraging everyone, to convert to a more friendly landscape, but the cost and that associated with a conversion on a residential property, it's difficult. It's difficult. So someday we may get there, but right now for our typical residential customers, it's not very cost effective. And like I said, I think you would find it more of a headache than anything else. So
one final note, as we utilize our existing recycled water, we do look for the greatest efficiencies. And so those areas that are close in proximity where we have pipelines, that's who we serve first. We continue to build out our recycled water distribution system to provide additional, but we look for those efficiencies so that we can do it in a cost-effective manner.
Can you discuss a little more about the HOAs, how in the HOAs in the area can they get more options approved that would be compliant? I think this is in regard to the non-functional turf requirements for HOAs.
Yeah, and I'll start and see if Danielle would like to add anything. We did have a symposium with the HOAs and the commercial customers, those that are subject to the emergency order from the governor. And thank you for coming. And just to recap, the governor did for a year non-functional turf, and we need to stop watering it. We want to transition in a reasonable way, though, not just turn off the water. We need to protect the trees, et cetera. And encourage that conversion over time. It's important to note that residential lawns are outside of this area, and even in HOAs where the landscape is used for community benefit, for serving the public, then that is also exempted from the requirement to take out non-functional turf. And so what we do encourage, and we want to continue to work with all the HOAs to help them to understand what would fall under the purview of non-functional turf and the requirement to remove, also but to protect the trees and also to protect the community, so that we do have those fun areas that the kids can go and play on the grass. And that's really part of our culture and our community. So there's only so much that would actually fall within that category. Anything else you'd like to add?
I would just add, as we look at additional restrictions due to the impacts to the Colorado River and the State Water Project, it's unlikely that we're going to see a major shift back into the CII HOA spaces converting back to non-functional turf. I think we're at a moment where it's really important that we start embracing more of the native plant pellets and really think towards a resilient mindset when it comes to outdoor spaces that aren't utilized for children and pets and community gatherings. So I think we're going to start embracing and hopefully start embracing designing the space for the use. And that's not a bad thing. It could be a very, very beautiful thing. We've seen a number of tremendous examples of HOAs converting into very, very beautiful spaces. So I hope that added value to the answer.
And I would just add to that the same rebates that I spoke of earlier about the turf removal, those are available to HOAs, to commercial customers. And I encourage you to reach out to me or my team. We've got some excellent examples of what HOAs have done to transform from turf to California native. They've just really done a great job over the last couple of years. So we can give you some examples and put you in touch with the right people to make sure that you have the help that you need.
So Jason, while you're up there, there was a question, a list of California native plants would be helpful. Is that possible? And also, where can they be purchased?
It is possible. We are actually, as part of our Murrieta Temecula in Bloom project, putting together a list of what those California native plants are and a kind of a palette, and then as well as the different nurseries that you can go to get those. A lot of the local nurseries carry various amounts of these California native plants. I won't even try to name them because I can't remember them off the top of my head, but if you go to our website and if you go to our water use efficiency page, we have a nursery link on there that has about 7 or 8 different nurseries that we've gone to, that we've worked with, and we know have the plants and materials that they would be looking for to replace their turf.
One more question for you, Jason. Why is artificial turf not included in the rebate program? It was in years past.
Yeah, that's a question that we do get quite a bit. My artificial turf example here, for a couple of different reasons. One, the idea is to not remove plant material. It's to keep plant material on the site, but to do it in a way that it doesn't use as much water. We want the areas that are being replaced to remain permeable. So, concrete and things like that just don't allow that groundwater to seep in like we want. Can cause more runoff. It certainly causes more urban heat. That's one of the big things that artificial turf, it really has a challenge with. It's just hot. And so for those reasons, the rebates at this time are not available for replacement with artificial turf.
Thank you. Regarding pools, I think this was in relation to your slide that showed so much outdoor watering. How does pools play into that outdoor watering chart? And then also, do we anticipate any restrictions related to pool remodeling with draining and filling pools after work has been completed?
All right, two-part question there. So as far as how much water does a pool use, it essentially uses about the same amount of water as lawn or turf. The evaporation rate for a pool is about the same as turf. So if you've got 1,000 square feet of turf or 1,000 square feet of surface area on your pool, the evaporation rate for that is about the same. So I mentioned, needing 30 gallons per square foot to keep your lawn healthy. Well, it's about the same to maintain your pool fill, depending on the size of your pool. Can you repeat the second part for me?
Yes, sorry.
Oh, restrictions for filling the pools.
Yes, draining and refilling.
At this point in time, we don't foresee any restrictions on being able to fill your pools. What we are not doing right now is providing discounts or credits for pool refill water. You can use water to refill your pool. You'll just simply pay for it within the tier that it falls.
Okay, last question I have on here. Are there any rate increases planned?
There are, as we adopted rate increases that will go into effect. The final 3-year plan goes into effect July 1st. So we have 2 different divisions. So 3.8% in the Rancho side, and then on the western side, 5.6% Santa Rosa. It's a good opportunity to talk about our cost of operations. As we look at the world around us, we're all suffering from very significant inflation. And so for us, it's not just gas and oil, it's chemical supplies. It's buying materials. It's a wait time to build our capital programs. And even the cost of imported water. Our cost of buying water that we did deliver to customers went up 7% last year, and it'll go up again by the same amount. So as a relative cost, and based on in the board's direction, we are as efficient as possible. We take being the stewards of our customers' money very seriously. It's paramount up there with public health and safety. And so relative to those, we are absorbing to every degree that we can the inflationary pressures that we're all suffering. That being said, we do understand that our customers have competing interests, and it's a difficult time right now. So they are in place. We will have rate increases as our costs go up, but we will do everything to be efficient on behalf of our customers.
I do have one more question. Can you discuss how Rancho Water obtains federal funding or grant funding to cover projects?
I appreciate the question. So Danielle talked a little bit about the advocacy. We are working with the state and the federal government on a very routine basis. In fact, next week we have 2 of the 5 state Water Resources Control Board members coming to visit us, and 2 others coming at the end of the month. And so we work very closely, not only to talk about funding support to our projects, but also just to help, and be engaged and help guide the policy. First blushes at policies relative to water supply aren't always the best. And so what might come out of Sacramento, we need to give it a reality check. And so one thing we are doing, we're continuing to do that. We're also working with the federal government. So President Gonzalez Brady and Senior Vice President John Rossi, we just took a trip to Washington. We met with Senator Padilla's office and Ken Calvert's office, Congressmember Ken Calvert and Darrell Lysa and Mike Levin. And I'm very proud to say we have very good support. Congressman Ken Calvert was a big driver in the district, getting $50 million towards the dam project, dam replacement project that Jake spoke about. $50 million. And that's quite a significant sum. And that means that's money directly that our customers do not have to pay. Most recently, Senator Padilla is very good to the district, has put in for $23 million in authorization for our groundwater supply project. And so we'll continue to work with the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation and other federal agencies for federal funding. But we take again, that stewardship of our customers' money. We take it very seriously, and we work very hard to garner money to support our programs, water supply at the cheapest possible cost.
Perfect. Then I just had one compliment to the Rancho Water District. We've had issues over the years and they have always been very supportive and friendly. So thank you very much to that attendee that wrote that. And that's all the questions I have on this end.
Well, with that, I just will close by saying thank you very much for coming. But thank you for those that also joining us online. It's meaningful. It's our chance to engage with our community. And as you have friends and family and and members that that have questions, please reach out. Again, we have significant programs that we really treat this as a partnership with our community, and we with the city of Temecula, with the city of Marietta, the county of Riverside. And so on behalf of the board, on behalf of Rancho California Water District and the team, I say thank you very much.